Hello everybody. It is I, Whimsy, here to deliver my nightly meditation and also to do a tarot reading. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about the upcoming summit that's taking place between Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un. It's taking place in Vietnam. I did do a throw last night about it, and it looked kind of interesting. I know that Trump has said that he's developed a positive relationship with the leader of Korea. We'll see how that goes. There's a lot that they're going to have to work out. I also looked at the relationship between, last night I also did a meditation where I looked at the relationship between Michael Cohen and the Russian mafia. Now, both of those things are kind of interesting because just when Donald Trump is trying to negotiate a new peace treaty with North Korea, tomorrow, Wednesday, Cohen will be testifying in DC, and yeah, so we all know about that. So basically, the first thing that I saw last night when I did my meditation on the summit with Trump in Vietnam with Kim Jong-un, it looked like Kim Jong-un really has begun to be seduced by the idea of opening up North Korea and benefiting the socioeconomic benefits of being an open society versus a closed society. The concern that Kim Jong-un had when I was in the energy is that he's worried that the treaty will not be honored, and he's worried that future presidents will not honor whatever the treaty is. It also looked like this process is going to take about 2.5 to 3 years before they have a semi-permeable border, similar to Vietnam, opening up to tourism, etc. There are going to be diplomats helping and advisors helping in this process of it's a 2.5 year process. That's what I keep hearing. It's about a 2.5, 3 year process. North Korea is not ready for prime time. They're not ready economically, financially, etc., to open up to tourism just yet. Just like China opened up to tourism, Vietnam opened up to tourism, North Korea will now open up to tourism. Saudi Arabia is considering opening up to tourism. What happens as a result of opening up to tourism, though, is that it's an improvement socioeconomically and socioculturally, because there's going to be more exchange. But because of where North Korea is, the poverty, etc., they're not really going to be able to welcome large amounts of tourism for another 2.5 to 3 years. They did have controlled tourism prior to this, but nowhere near the magnitude that would have had any kind of lasting impact on their economy. So that I do see changing in the coming years. In that sense, I think that it's probably going to be one of Trump's better achievements, is just getting the ball rolling. I don't know if he's going to be there when everything is completed, but at the very least, hopefully he's going to be able to get the ball rolling. The second thing that I looked at last night, as I mentioned, was the raid on Cohen's offices as it looks energetically to me. Cohen, I believe, was a lawyer. He was a fixer for the Russian, it looks like Russian mafia used him quite a bit. And he appears to be some kind of go-between between Donald Trump and the Russian mafia. So what happened was that the Russian mafia was making money. In the slave trade, you had triangular trade. You had sugar, rum, and slaves. They would use the sugar to make the rum. They would sell the alcohol. They would buy slaves. Tobacco was also a part of that, but it was sugar, rum, tobacco, slaves. In the new economy with the Russian mafia, it's weapons, drugs, slaves, and hiding things in real estate. That is what I saw last night. So they were, that after the Soviet Union collapsed, they had all this old Soviet weapons. Some of it got sold off, some of it got donated. Some of the old Soviet stuff wound up with North Korea. The North Koreans, like the junkyard dog I had mentioned, Kim Jong-un as a charity case, South Korea helps them, China helps them, and Russia helps them by giving them old Soviet equipment like the old train he uses. But also the Russian mafia was selling some of the old weapons, etc., to scrupulous people. They were also selling drugs, cocaine, etc., drugs along the eastern seaboard of the United States. There's also some Russian mafia activity in California. But when I tune into the relationship with Donald Trump and Michael Cohen, I'm seeing the eastern seaboard, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Florida. And this is where the activity is taking place. Drugs, nightclubs, casinos, prostitution, and then all that money had to get hid, so it was hidden in real estate. So there was a lot of money coming and going from questionable sources, and the person that helped hide that money was Michael Cohen. So that is the relationship between Donald Trump, Michael Cohen, the Russian mafia, and that is also the relationship between human trafficking, drugs, guns, money laundering, real estate, and Donald Trump. And it's interesting, I got into Ivanka Trump's energy, and she had said in the remote viewing I had done a couple weeks ago that what they were doing was no different than anybody else in Manhattan real estate, and the only reason that they were being targeted is because of who my father is. That was what I heard from her during a remote a couple weeks ago. So whether that's true or not, SDNY and the feds have been monitoring activity of the Russian mafia for some time, and this is why Cohen is a big fish, and this is why Cohen is probably going to negotiate with SDNY and be put into some kind of safety, because the Russian mafia has put a hit on him. We've documented that. I don't think the hit necessarily is going to come from Donald Trump. I think it's more than likely going to come from the Russian mafia, if it's going to come from anybody, because he was involved with some very dark stuff. So I'm going to throw cards twice today. The first is going to be on how the summit is going to go with Trump and Kim Jong-un, and then the second is about the relationship between Cohen, the Russian mafia, and what's going to happen as a result of him testifying. So let's go ahead and we'll first do Trump in Vietnam, because I actually think that something good is going to come from this. For the same reason that the Soviet Union collapsed, they couldn't economically continue to keep the war going. The same is true for North Korea. They are really poor. They are really, really, really poor. And the fact that the Russians want to help negotiate this with the United States, I think it's fairly obvious just from the remote viewings I have done and shared with people here, that the Russians feel that they got a raw deal after the collapse of the Soviet Union, and they want to make sure that North Korea gets a better deal than they got, because we reneged on some treaties, evidently, and it was a socioeconomic disaster. Many Russians feel that it was horrible when the Soviet Union collapsed. We've talked about that. So I believe that that is why they want to be in there helping to make sure that North Korea gets a fair deal. I don't have a problem with the fact that the international community wants to be involved with this, and it makes sense since Russia and China and South Korea are border countries that they would want to be part of the negotiations. All right, let's go ahead and take a look. How will the summit go between Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump? How will the summit go? How will the summit go between Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump? What will be the Vietnam summit? What will be with the Vietnam summit? We all want to know. Let's cut the deck and find out what we find. We always are surprised, and we always have fun. What is the base card? Patience, temperance, patience. I'm going to go ahead and predict 2.5 to 3 years before they're really ready to start opening open controlled border with some a more of a tourism, a more of an open field. It takes about 2.5 to 3 years tentatively. Still holding on, fear, paranoia, trouble giving up religious beliefs, unhealthy religious beliefs or ideas about the current leader of North Korea. Those ideas are actually keeping them from going forward. Fear of the outside world. Devil can be holding on to addictions, fears, false beliefs. At right now, walking away from a battle you can't win. Cutting it off. Messages regarding war also, or justice. It has a legal component to it. A long nightmare, insomnia, migraine headaches, stress, fear at night, coming to an end. As a result of what? Long period of being caged, a long feeling of being surrounded or in a defensive mode. This looks like a chronic action-reaction. This looks like a chronic relationship, and this is probably talking about Kim Jong-un's his country and about the fear of the outside world. This is not just economically stressful. This is really talking a lot about the psychological stress. Star, hope, but there's hope. Whatever happened in the past has given the country some hope. Previous conversations. Concern about being reneged on business deals. The scrupulous businessman. He's got scruples. Not knowing if they can trust the United States to do everything. You know, if Donald Trump is promising to make Kim Jong-un a billionaire and to have resorts like Boca Raton in North Korea, you have to be very careful that the businessman is not just a con artist. It's not a trickster, but it could be in scrupulous business deals. Where they're at right now, moon, confusion, nobody really knows what's going to come of the summit. It's really an opportunity to have a conversation, try and figure out what North Korea really wants, because this is confusion here. What is around? Devastation. I think that they're going to get to peace because there's nowhere else to go, and because when I do a remote viewing of North Korea, I see hunger, starvation, fear, and desperation, and people feel that they're being held hostage and slowly, systematically starved to death. The situation is impossible for many of the people in North Korea. And so because the situation, the sanctions, etc., the closed society, the paranoia is impossible, they're in a situation now where they're up against the wall and they have to negotiate. It's not that Donald Trump is the greatest negotiator in the world. It's that they have to trust him because they have no choice. Hopes and fears that the summit will go nowhere. The final outcome, great. Knight of Cups. We're going to have peace with North Korea, but it's going to be a lot harder than I think Trump realizes. This is going to be a hard thing to negotiate. But to be honest with you, I want to make sure everybody can see these cards. To be honest with you, even though this is a hard thing to negotiate, they're going to get through this. Give this 2.5 to 3 years before we see a very different vision of North Korea. It's a more open, controlled North Korea. Let's do a clarification here now. It feels to me like the United States comes in and creates a framework for this to happen over the next couple of years, but it will never be, it's not going to be the huge love affair that Donald Trump hopes it will be. It's very pragmatic going forward. It's very pragmatic. It's going to take a couple of years, but we are going to get there. The main negotiator is not going to be Donald Trump, but we are going to get there. All right, nice job. Nice job for everybody who's working on that peace treaty. We will have peace. Give us a couple years, we're gonna get there. All right, so this next one. So if Donald Trump has anything from his presidency, he's gonna walk away and be proud of it. It's not gonna be the wall, it's gonna be that at the very least, the craziness with North Korea is going to come to an end, and he had to make his threats and do all the silly things he does, Kim Jong-un. But the truth of the matter is, the socioeconomic desperation I see when I go in there, they have to have peace with the United States. They can't keep this going. It's exhausting, and it's destroying the country. The Cold War with the United States that North Korea is trying to maintain is slowly, systematically destroying the country, and they can't feed and house and care for their population. And so opening the borders slowly over time, and opening to tourism slowly over time, and UN inspectors, etc. over time is inevitable, because they can't continue on like this. That's how I interpret the cards. They're not our lovers. They're, inverted lover card. They're not madly in love with us. It's more that they're willing to tolerate us. It's a very pragmatic relationship. All right. I want to go forward now and just take a look at Cohen's testimony, but specifically I want to see if Michael Cohen's going to be okay and what's going to come out from the investigation into Cohen's offices. Let's take a look at that. He was a lawyer for the Russian mafia, and Trump basically has said that, good luck, if you want to take the risk. That's actually what Trump said. You want to take the risk to testify, go for it. I don't know if Trump's the one that's threatening him, but the Russian mafia may be threatening him. What is going to be with Cohen's testimony? He's already testifying in closed hearings today. What is going to happen in those closed hearings? What's going to happen with him, the Senate, investigation, ties with mafia? Is he going to be okay? Is he going to be okay? Let's take a look. Walking away from his business, walking away from what he used. Yeah, he will never be in that business again. I really think he's going to get helped. I really think that he is so vital to SDNY. They're going to be interviewing him while he's in jail. He's going to be taken out of his prison, out of his confinement, and he's going to be assisting the SDNY. He's going to get out early because of this. But boy, he is going to have some protection on him. Going nowhere. Look at this confinement. There's a trickster right over him. Deception. Trickery. People in abusing power over him as well. There's Robert Mueller. Sun card. The truth is coming out. Look at this, trying to get out of jail. People in positions of authority possibly abusing him. Is everything visible here? Yeah. Okay. Here are the base cards. Getting out of jail. Look at all this desire to get out of jail here. Offers. Hopes and fear. Boy, let's go through this. Look at all this fear of confinement. Right? Look at the outcome, smoother waters. The light coming out. And here, abuse of power. Somebody in a position of power that abused the power. Trickster, going nowhere. I would interpret this as Cohen receiving protection. I think that he is going to be protected. I think that he is going to get a deal. I think he's an incredibly important informant. And I think that they're going to do everything in their power to keep him safe and protected because he is vital to this investigation. And I think that they will treat him well. They will treat him well because he sincerely wants to help in the investigation, and he sincerely wants to come clean and do everything in his power to cooperate in order to get out of this situation. Let's do a clarification. There has to be negotiation between him and SDNY, the feds, etc., on how to negotiate his time in prison in the future, because he's going to be testifying and turning state's evidence for a long time to come, well beyond even the time he's in prison. And probably he'll be eligible for early release as a result of this. Just because there's a Two of Pentacles coming in with the swords. So I would say there's negotiations happening. There will be negotiations happening because of how vital he is. He's incredibly vital as a person who has assisted in the investigation. You have to also realize that it isn't just what he said, it was what they got when they went in, and it's the fact that he helped them get additional documents that were not in the original raid. He's been very helpful and vital to this investigation, which has gone on for quite some time. The truth of the matter is that it's been 8 years. 8 years in the making, this raid. It wasn't something that happened overnight, contrary to what the Americans may think, that this was an open criminal investigation with the SDNY going back. I'm seeing 8 years. 8 years they'd been monitoring this activity. So that puts us back in 2011. 2011 is when they really began to look at this. All right, thanks everybody for watching this video. I hope it gave everybody some interesting things to talk about, think about with the coming summit in Vietnam and the testimony that is going on with Michael Cohen. So thanks for watching everybody. The next video I do probably will be in Palm Springs. I'll let everybody see the conference. It's going to be on the treatment of autoimmune conditions using preventative medicine and natural medicine. I personally am an integration naturopathic doctor. I believe science is great. I believe there are pharmaceuticals out there that do amazing things. I don't think people have to be quite so anti-pharmaceuticals. But I think that the foundation has to be lifestyle, diet, nutrition, all that good stuff. All right, thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you next time from Palm Springs. Take care. Bye.